Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. We are so glad that you are here. I am Lauren Anzaldo, and my pronouns are she and her, and I will be your service leader this morning. Awesome. So we are going to do our chalice lighting words now, and this is a little bit different than what we normally do. The title of the words that I've selected is called Be the Blessing You Already Are by Sarah Gibb Millspaugh and John Gibb Millspaugh. And so what we're going to do in a minute. I'm going to read the intro part. And then as you feel comfortable and as you are willing and able to do so, if you have somebody near you, you want to reach out and touch them, hold their hand or put a hand on their shoulder, and we'll just kind of feel the energy of each other in the room. And of course, even if we're not physically touching one another, know that have that supportive feeling and that energy of all of us being here together in community. I'll tell you when to do that part, but of course, as you're at your comfort level. In our religious tradition, it is not just ministers and religious professionals who have power to bless. Each of us has the power to bless one another and to bless the world. Therefore, I invite everyone here to participate in this blessing. The words are ordinary words, but we make the blessing real through our shared intention. And now if you would like to reach out, put a hand on someone, or hold a hand, touch their shoulder, or just stand near them. We'll feel that connection. And so, this is great to watch. As we have been blessed, so we bless one another to be a blessing. Breathe in, breathe out. This breath we share with all that breathes. Feel the love of the universe flowing through this community, into you and out into the universe again. Let the love of all the universe, your love, flow outward to its height, to its depth, its broad extent. You are more than you know, and more beloved than you know. Take up what power is yours to create safe haven, to make of earth a heaven. Give hope to those you encounter that they may know safety from inner and outer harm. Be happy and at peace, healthy and strong, caring and joyful. Be the blessing you already are. That is enough. Blessed be. Amen. Amen. And that is adapted from the lovely. From the Karaniya Mata Sutta. And at this time, as you're willing and able, we can rise and recite together our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And if you're able to, continue standing, and we will have the choir come up and help us with our opening hymn, Amazing Grace, which is number 205.
That
So you may have seen in the description of the service for today, we're going to be talking about community service and in particular service rendered by folks who have been involved in scouting organizations. And we've got a special little thing you're going to be hearing in a few moments here. But trying to see if there are kids here today. I don't really see any little kids, but that's okay because we will do time for all ages anyway, because it's for all ages. But before I do that, and why I was mentioning the kids is I wanted to make sure that any young people among us were here and kind of got to observe how we in our community as UUCP also give back in so many ways and have given back, and how that's interwoven through our work. So at this time, we sometimes have done in the past Scout Sundays in February and March is Girl Scout and Boy Scout Sunday. I think Boy Scouts in February, Girl Scouts in March. But we haven't done that lately, and we don't really have the scouts that we used to have. But we have lots of folks among us who have been involved in scouting. So if you are willing or able, or you can raise your hand, but stand, if you have ever been a Girl Scout, Boy Scout, navigator, involved in any kind of scouting organization as a young person or as an adult leader, volunteer, or anything like that. This is the time to stand up and be recognized. That includes myself and Scott. And look at how many among us are involved, have been involved in that. And the other piece, if you can stay standing, if you have been involved or are involved in any kind of civic organization or organization that is specifically dedicated to community service, the ones that come to mind, things like Rotary and organizations like that, but there are many that are not necessarily those international. So if you are also involved in that, yeah, some others may stand up. Thank you. So just that commitment that we all have to community service as we look around, and and there's others too who are maybe not even standing, but we know that you are serving and doing things in the community, and how important that is and how we want to recognize that. So let's give everyone a big round of applause for that. Awesome. So we have a short video now that is going to be played. So that wasn't one of our local Girl Scout troops, but it's just an example, and we certainly have had local troops among us who have earned the Bronze Award. I know I've been the leader of one that did so. At this time, we are going to have a special collection, which is called our Fifth Sunday Collection. Most of you are familiar with this, as we have for many years. On the fifth Sunday, any month that has a fifth Sunday, we take up a collection for a special project in the community. And we have a presenter who is going to come up here and tell us about this project. And I will let him explain everything. But also, just as a reminder, when the baskets do come around, when you write your checks, make sure to make a note that it's for the fifth Sunday if you're making it to UUCP, or if it's in an envelope with cash, just so that the bookkeeping can keep track of that. And when the baskets come around, this is also the time to drop in Joys and Concerns slips or those visitor cards. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to this person, who is a very special person that you will recognize.
Hello, I am Desmond Anzaldo-Satterwhite. I am 14 years old, and I am a freshman at Pensacola High School in the IB program. I am a Life Scout with Troop 495. I've been in scouting for 9 years, since I was about 5 or 6 years old, where I was a Cub Scout, and I joined Boy Scouts when I was 11. What I want to talk about is my Eagle Scout project. So what I'm going to be trying to do is repainting some of the parking lines and the guidelines in the parking lot, and also refreshing and repainting the patio in the front. If you've gone out there, you've seen probably that it's not as clear as it used to be, and it's pretty hard to see where the parking lines start and stop. And And because of this, I'm hoping to try to see if we could get a few people from my troop and possibly from this church to come out and repaint and refresh some of those areas. On the first day, we'll be first blowing the leaves into a bunch of bags and then throwing the bags of the leaves away so they don't re-blow like back onto the road when we're going to be painting. And then after that, we will be power washing the parking lot to get it clean first. That'll be the end of the first day, and then the second day, we'll be actually repainting the lines and the patio, and making sure it looks good. We'll be providing all the materials like the paint and all the stuff that we would need for that, and we're also going to be providing food and sunscreen and water to make sure everyone is safe and ready to work. And so I'll be needing some volunteers from the church if you could come. It's going to be, I don't have a date yet specifically, but it's going to be late March or like the beginning of April. And if you can't actually volunteer, the money for today is going to be the funding for most of the project. So if you get any support, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm a little proud. So at this time, we have another little special element within our service, which is our new member welcome ceremony. And I just happen to be the membership team leader, so I'm going to be helping with that. At this time, we have two folks who have recently joined, and I'm going to come down off the stage and stand with them up here. I know that we're going to stand up here in the front of the sanctuary. They are Honor Bell III, who's returning to us after years of having been involved with us as well before moving away, coming back. And also Michelle Poussin, who's a new arrival to our congregation. We're so excited to have Michelle. And then Carolyn Toxon has been a member now for a while, at least 6, 8 months, 9 months, but wasn't here when we did the last new member ceremony. So we have Carolyn as well. What we are going to do is there are words that we recite together, and they're projected up here on the next slide, and we will do that, and you will see the words up there. So we'll do that. Okay, so we will start off with the congregation words. Hopefully you can read them up there, and I can lead that part. We warmly welcome you into membership. We are glad you have chosen to join us. We know that the ideas, energies, resources, and commitments which each of you bring will greatly enrich our vibrant and growing community. And now the new members.
Today we celebrate entering membership with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. We bring to the community our strengths, our limitations, and our unique desires. We ask for a place of love and encouragement as we find our way among you. We are glad to be here.
And then all of us together. We commit ourselves to an ever-increasing understanding of right relations among us. We value honesty, direct speaking, and courtesy in our conflict, courage in our speech, and integrity in our action. We hold one another accountable to our very best intentions. May we be true to ourselves, true to each other, and true to the vision of the beloved community we are ever becoming. And Laura is going to help with the beading, as we call the beading of the new members.
With a D.
With a D, yes. These are just, so the members, I'm going to put these, well, there's some little goodie stickers and things like that on the table if you want to grab them. We are so excited to have you as new members and look forward to you being a part. Thank you so much. Always a special time when we get to welcome new members. And I think I'm going off script here because Scott was going to introduce this, but I'm standing here at the microphone. So we're going to sing our meditation hymn, which is This Is My Song, number 159, and we're just going to stay seated and sing from our seats for this one. I know as we're opening it up, Scott and I kind of picked songs that we really like. Some of them relate more directly to the theme than others. But he shared with me that this song, whenever we sing it, it always reminds him of Reverend Bob Eddy, because this was a song, I don't know if he sang it at one time or he liked it or somehow, but it has that connection for us.
Here we go. That song always gets me. Also, as some of the histories of the songs, I've talked about Amazing Grace a bunch of times, but I'm sure that you know that it's an anti-slavery song is where it originally came from, and the history is really interesting. But I've said that before, so I'll leave that. But the Nat King Cole we asked for because super fan of Nat King Cole. We even recently went to Montgomery, and when we were there, we did some pilgrimages to Nat King Cole's house, which is on the campus of Alabama State University, the historically black college and university in Montgomery, and it's right next to Ralph Abernathy's house also, who was Martin Luther King's right-hand man. So interesting little background there, and they were moved over to that spot, just to be clear, so it's not He didn't. I don't think they were neighbors, but it's just a neat little thing. But anyway, so as many of you know, all right. So as many of you know, and probably guessed, we chose the title for this service from the Boy Scout Pledge. On my honor, I will do my best, etc. We looked at that as a possible topic because we live in a culture that constantly strives for perfection. But as most of you know, it's a goal that's rarely met. Lauren and I will go back and forth about this sometimes. She was a straight A student. I was a student who earned a 69.6 in my algebra class and was so happy that Mr. Alvarez rounded the grade up to a 70. So I didn't have to take algebra over the summer. Yes. A shout all the way through Corpus Christi, Texas. Was that my best? Kind of. Algebra wasn't my passion, but I had other passions. Writing, history, reading. I was generally pretty good at that. I was personally never a straight A student until grad school, I don't think. And frankly, at that stage, a B is almost like a D, so I'm not sure if that really counts. Either way, those C's were hard-earned C's. I did my best. I'm not sure if I learned that lesson from the Boy Scouts, but I remember the pledge throughout my days. My mom was a den mother for our Cub Scout troop in Richmond, Virginia, when I lived there. Later, I went to Boy Scouts. In fact, if you can believe it, I was our troop chaplain, which is kind of ironic, but well, maybe not. I'm right here right now, so maybe it's not ironic. Anyway, I don't remember doing anything in that job, but that was my position in the troop until I got bored with Boy Scouts and left. Later, though, I got involved in something similar to Sea Scouts, and in that, I was pretty active, and I really did excel. It later led me to join the Navy a week after I got out of high school at the age of 17. I don't know if it's that charge to do my best that led me to excel, or simply that I was doing something that I was passionate about that led me in that direction. Did one cause the other, or did I participate because I was motivated and later excelled? I don't know. But certainly history is filled with others who have been motivated by a similar charge. Do your best. This is especially true in civic life. I can think of a number of examples in civic life of folks who were in Scouts who made some great contributions. In fact, it's sometimes harder to find people who made positive contributions to community service who were not at one time a Scout. Both Meghan Markle and her late mother, Queen Elizabeth, were both Scouts. Another prominent queen, who frankly I like quite a bit more, Queen Latifah, was also a Scout. People from different political spectrums, such as Nancy Reagan and Michelle Obama, both were Girl Scouts. But closer to our modern age, Taylor Swift, who might be inspiring generations of Swifties to do their best. I just love that term. She's certainly done pretty well for herself, so you could say that she did her best. As you might know, the Boy Scouts somewhat recently changed its name to Scouts BSA, as it responded in part to earlier injustices and exclusions, but also to changing times by opening its ranks to gay and transgender kids and Scout leaders, as well as young women. Both organizations have ranks of achievements, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, or the BSA, Scouts BSA and the Girl Scouts, and they both have prominent high ranks, which only a very, very small fraction of these kids end up getting. The Girl Scouts has the Gold Award, and I should also note that the Gold Award went through many, many name changes during the years. The Eaglet, what's the other one? The Curved Bar, and some others in there, but the Gold Award is what it's called now. And some of those examples of the people who earned one of those awards was Senator Tammy Duckworth, Dr. Paula Montgomery. Is she in the house? There she is, Dr. Paula Montgomery, who you might know, as well as Little Miss Madeline Anzaldo-Satterwhite, who some of y'all know as well. As for the BSA, there are also a few. Besides our own Nathan Wolverton and Reed Harwell, as well as some adults out here who are probably some Eagle Scouts. Any y'all Eagle Scouts?
Joey.
Huh? Who?
Joey.
Oh, Joey. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Good. Oh, and yeah. Well, besides all these folks in the room, out there in the world, and in our congregation, Neil Armstrong also is mentioned sometimes as one of the famous ones, as well as several of the Apollo astronauts. There's also Percy Sutton, a former aviator himself with the Tuskegee Airmen, who worked on a different Apollo mission as he was responsible for bringing back Harlem's famed Apollo Theater. Former Eagle Scout Ernest Sutton learned how to do his best during his life and traumatic entry into high school as one of the Little Rock Nine. There is also the example of former Vice President Gerald Ford, who is probably one of the best examples of someone who had to make use of the Scouts Be Prepared slogan, as he quickly and unceremoniously had to become President of the United States after Richard Nixon resigned in the wake of the Watergate scandal. But there's another former president I wanted to discuss, one that some of you knew personally, who really exemplified what we wanted to talk about today, the merging of scouting and civic life. And that's the late president of Movement for Change, Leroy Boyd. It's a picture of Leroy and me after we did an interview with StoryCorps. You might know that from NPR, but it's a dear friend of ours. So as we showed a few minutes ago through our informal survey, not only have we had a number of former scouts in the house, but also I forgot to mention, Bill Sloan was also a Order of the Eagle, which is almost like every year in that celebration. So just wanted to give Bill a shout out too. But also there's a connection with Scouts, and also there's a connection between Scouts and public service. For those who didn't have the good fortune to know Leroy Boyd, he was the embodiment of public servant. Leroy was a civil rights leader and co-founder of the social justice organization Movement for Change, an organization that Lauren and I are both currently members, and maybe some of you are too. You may have driven past the Leroy Boyd Center for Social Justice on Davis Highway, which is where Lauren and I got hitched back in '07. And that was obviously named for Leroy after his untimely passing in 2010. Leroy grew up in Pensacola and worked as a young man in the neighborhood grocery store, Stamatello's, which it was before my time, but maybe some of y'all know that place. After graduating from the segregated high school, Booker T. Washington, nearly a decade after the Brown versus Board of Education, the schools in Escambia County were still segregated, if you didn't know that. But Leroy graduated about a decade after from Booker T. He joined the Air Force during the Vietnam War, and after his military service was done, he came back to Pensacola. This was in the late 1960s, as social unrest took over the country, racial discrimination and police violence were rampant. As we see now in the news with the murder of Tyree Nichols in Memphis, that city has seen its share of violence, including, most famously, the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Inspired by King's assassination, the life of Malcolm X, and his work with local NAACP leader H.K. Matthews, Leroy Boyd convinced his future wife, Jeannie, to help desegregate a local pool hall that was not allowing black folks to enter. In an interview I did with him shortly before his death, which is from that picture right there, Leroy told me that he just asked Jeannie randomly, not really randomly, but asked Jeannie, "You want to go play some pool tonight?" That led to their first arrest. Leroy told me this part of his story in one of a few interviews I did with him in his later years. And if you knew Leroy, which I know a number of you did, he had some stories and would often keep you as you were about ready to leave. Kind of like Columbo's, "Just one more thing." That's actually in a little bit of Columbo and Leroy Boyd's voice. I didn't catch that until just now, but just one more thing. They kept you in the parking lot until someone rescued you from him. I can think of a number of times being stuck in the parking lot, about ready to go, car is running, and somebody says, "Leroy, let them go." All right. But what Leroy left out of all those many, many stories, and all the times Leroy was in the newspaper for joining the protests as a youth, organizing groups that brought about the creation of Martin Luther King Plaza, with many other leaders, I should add. And most famously, the incredible effort to change the name of Alkany Street to Martin Luther King Drive was one thing that he left out, was that the first time he was in the newspaper was not his arrest or to recognize his mathematical prowess at Booker T. Washington, but was apparently as he was awarded the BSA's highest honor, Eagle Scout. So, did his work as an Eagle Scout lead Leroy to eventually do all that he accomplished in his relatively short life? He was a husband, godfather, friend to so many people, Vietnam-era veteran, NAACP youth leader, union activist, and later co-founder of one of the most well-respected social justice organizations in the region, Movement for Change. It's hard to say that this was what led him to the position that he was in and led him to the person that he became. But if it didn't, I think it would be an interesting coincidence. I think of the BSA's pledge, first lines, "On my honor, I will do my best." Like all of us, he was imperfect, but few who knew him would say that he didn't always strive to do the best, and he would encourage you to do your best. Lauren and I joined Movement for Change and became active with the organization after Leroy helped us organize a panel on violence against prisoners. We stayed active with the organization until, after having 2 kids, it made it difficult for us to be there as often as we'd wished. But we helped him in Movement for Change wherever we could. As soon as we joined the organization, though, Leroy quickly brought us into the group. He asked us to sit on various committees, and eventually both of us served on the board of directors at different times. If our daughter could speak at that time, I'm sure that he would have asked Maddie to be a member of the youth council. He not only wanted to bring you in and make you feel welcome, but he also wanted you to do your best. As most of you in the room know, because most of you are involved in the community, it's good to attend things, but it's really important to be more deeply involved in the things that you care about. As during Leroy's youth, we live in uncertain times that call for people to be involved, figure out the ways to stay involved without burning out, and to constantly strive to do our best. I know this is a heavy charge, but it's also not. You cannot always be perfect. You cannot always be the best, but we can always strive to do our best. And that's our charge, to do our best. Thank you.
The choir come up now for our closing hymn, Love Will Guide Us, number 131. Yes, you can stand as you're willing and able. Thank you. words are by Cynthia Landrum. Be true, be well, be loving. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, and our care for one another. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues until we are together again, friends. Be strong, be well, be true, be loving. Go in peace.
Hey.